The idea is that we can produce a well-controlled comparison by knowing the schools to which you applied and where you were admitted. And this produces a very striking finding, which is if we compare people who went to, say, private colleges, think about perhaps Boston University versus UMass, or even Harvard and MIT versus UMass, sort of naively, you'll see that the people who went to the expensive private colleges earn a lot more. But conditional on where people were admitted, they do about equally well. There's no advantage, and that suggests that most of the observed difference, perhaps all of the observed difference in earnings between people who went to private and public universities is due to the fact that the people who went to the private universities were destined to do better anyway. They were on average people who were either more ambitious or had higher test scores. But those characteristics are reflected in their application decisions and their admissions results. Conditional on where they applied and where they got in, there doesn't seem to be any earnings advantage. So that's the example we use to illustrate regression. Of course, it isn't really a randomized trial, but we can tell that it looks very well controlled because we can see that after appropriate conditioning, and in this case, we think appropriate means holding fixed an individual's own assessment of how qualified they are for different sorts of schools. And of course, we're also holding the admissions office's decisions constant, how the admissions office gauged the applicants. Conditional on that, it looks like a good experiment in the sense that people who went to different sorts of schools have similar family backgrounds and they have similar measures of ability like SAT scores.
So this is not a finding that you wave around too much in front of your, say, administration, presumably.
In fact, it's a little awkward. I work at a very selective school, and I'm friendly with our admissions officer, head of admissions here, and we discuss these results fairly often. There may be reasons why you'd like to come to MIT besides the earnings advantage it's likely to give you.
Absolutely.
But certainly on economic grounds alone, I'm not speaking specifically about MIT, but the difference between Penn and Penn State is not apparent in the data.
And
so that's a very striking finding, and it shows the power of regression to produce a more well-controlled comparison, if not a slam dunk, and in particular to eliminate some of the obvious sources of selection bias that are likely to be misleading.